Hi, I'm Redneckcomputergeek, and today we're going to be talking about why it is sometimes you end up finding gas in your oil in your lawn tractor engine. Now, this is a pretty universal concept. It doesn't really matter whether you're dealing with a Briggs or whether you're dealing with a Kohler, a Tecumseh. It's all pretty much about the same universal concept. And once you see exactly what's going on, you'll understand why. So normally this symptom is found pretty simply. You go to change the oil and you find that the oil is smelling of gasoline, just like main mud mower is right now. And normally at that point, I end up with people that are on my Facebook group, Main Mud Mowers on Facebook, and why is gas in my oil? So let's explain it. In your carburetor, you've got your inlet line that comes in from your gas tank. On the inside of your carburetor bowl, on the very bottom of your carburetor, which I'll do a full teardown on this and show you more later, inside your carburetor bowl, you have what's called a float. And your float goes up and down depending on the amount of gas that is within your float bowl. And then you have a needle valve that is attached to that, and that goes up and down with the float, and that determines how much gas ends up inside of this float bowl. So what ends up happening is where the needle valve actually sits, you end up with gunk that builds up, or you end up with a piece of dirt or something, and the needle valve actually can't manage to sit correctly up in its seat. And at that point, the gas just continues to keep pouring from your gas tank into your float bowl, and then from your float bowl it goes through your jet up into your carburetor. From your carburetor it goes down, trickling down your intake, and from your intake it ends up in your cylinder. Your piston has rings on the outside, and as the gasoline ends up eating away the little bit of oil that's around those pistons, it seeps down in and it ends up in the base of your engine. And at that point, you end up with gas in your oil, because that's where your oil is. So, we're going to pull the carburetor off of main mud mower because this carburetor is just plain messed up anyway, and we're going to be putting a different one on. But I'd like to show you exactly what I mean about the float and about the needle valve, and where it is you need to clean if you're having this issue. Okay, so why don't we discuss the different parts of the carburetor while we're here. So when you're dealing with one of these carburetors, this is your electric solenoid shutoff. And if you're doing any kind of modification to these, the very first thing you do is remove this and you cut the tip off so that the electrical will not shut you off in the middle of doing something. And so this is your air fuel mix. This is your throttle. And this one here is your choke. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull off this bowl, and I'll show you exactly what's causing your issue. So there's your little helpful tip for this. If these are stuck, alligator vice grips. Now be careful when you press down on this side that you don't end up bending your inlet. There we go. Okay, so now we can see right here, this piece here, this is your float, which is pretty universal across most systems. And on the inside of this, if we lift it up and we flip it over, there's a little metal piece on the inside of there. So you slide this out and then lift this straight up. Whoop. And this right here is your needle valve. Now on older ones, these are just solid metal. This is a newer carburetor, so it's just a plastic piece of junk. For a while they had red tips on metal ones, and then they started converting over to these plastic pieces of junk. And that sits down in your needle seat. And there's a hole going through that needle seat, which you can see there. And that is what's causing your issue. So usually what I recommend is taking a Q-tip and cleaning that out really good with carburetor cleaner. If you have the chance to, I'd replace this needle valve. The rubbery ones can become porous with age. They can become brittle and actually snap off. I'd recommend just plain out replacing it. So there we are. We've managed to go and sit and go through everything. Nothing was eaten while working on it. And now you know what's causing the issue.